The thing about books and stories is that they can show you a scenario, worldview, or perspective you wouldn't usually experience. Like, for example, how does conflict look like from the side of the villain? And what happens when you start to feel empathy towards someone you used to consider a monster? Now, this video is not a book review, but I've just finished reading Red Rising by Pierce Brown. And what I tend to do on this channel is I analyze interesting topics, themes, or philosophical ideas that I find in books and stories. But before I talk about the main character and how his perspective changes after he infiltrates the enemy, and at some point he becomes one of them and forms relationships and start to change his perspective on the people he used to hate. But first, let's add some context, since not everyone listening might have read the book. The story of Red Rising takes place in a futuristic society where people are organized by color, and there is a clear hierarchy of every color, where reds are the lowest and golds are the highest, and there are many colors in between for every specialization that the society needs. And as you might have already guessed by the title Red Rising, our protagonist is Darrow, who is a red. And he and his people were sent to Mars to prepare the planet for the arrival of the rest of humanity. And they've been told they're pioneers, they've been told that they're serving a very important mission, that they're sacrificing themselves for the greater good, and they're taught those values like order and listening to the hierarchy are very, very important. You're playing a crucial role and all that kinds of stuff. But one thing missing is that they are not allowed to see the surface of the planet. They're living in underground towns and they're mining for resources, but then the soldiers are the ones who export it to the surface. And it all starts to make sense when the main character, Darrow, finds out that everything is a lie. He gets the opportunity to see the surface of the planet, and it turns out that everyone has been lied to. There are already luxurious cities with advanced technologies covering the planet, and he and his people are stuck underground working as slaves for the upper echelons of society. Now skimming past the stuff where someone important to him dies and he joins an uprising, and then we get to the part where he goes to infiltrate the institute, which is like an educational institution for the golds, the highest class of the society. And at this point, due to his past experiences, he sees golds as those heartless, merciless monsters. Like, they are the ones who killed people close to him, they're the ones who treat his people like slaves, they're the ones who lied to them and forced them underground. So unsurprisingly, he's full of rage. He hates them and he can barely keep it together at first when he goes among them. But when he is forced to acclimate to his new environment, he slowly starts to change, just a little bit. Because he starts spending time with those young golds and he starts forming some relationships, and he's hesitant to form any serious relationships because he feels like he's lying to all of them. And at the beginning, that's not a huge problem because he still sees them as heartless monsters. But over time, he starts to make friends, or at least those other people start treating him as a friend. And he starts noticing that there is actually some nuance. Not every gold is a bad person. They're not all monsters, especially the kids or the teenagers who sort of haven't been formed into those elite golds that rule society yet. And he starts seeing the human side of someone he used to consider a villain. And now we get to the really serious inner conflict of, from one side, he feels like he's betraying his own people and his mission, because he is here to destroy the golds, destroy the ruling class, and he represents the hope of all his people, of all lower colors. So the first thing is that he feels guilty for the emotions he's having towards the goals, and then he feels even more guilty because he is lying to all of those new friends, and he's carrying that weight of, I'm kind of your enemy, but at the moment I'm also your friend, and maybe eventually I will have to kill you. And like, he doesn't know what to do anymore. He starts doubting his mission. That's also due to the part where he doesn't have contact with those people who sent him here. He doesn't know whether they're still alive, whether the rebellion is still ongoing. He can get discovered at any moment. And throughout the story, he's wrestling with those inner feelings a lot. There are moments where he is leaning towards the mission and towards the destruction of the gods. There are moments where he's leaning towards the, like, I really, really want to admit the truth to those people who seem closest to me. And eventually this leads to his worldview and his mission evolving. It's not so black and white anymore. He's still full of rage, but it sort of gets redirected because he was met with a situation where at the beginning he was pointing towards a clear enemy, like those people are the ones responsible, so he's going to, they are the target. But then it turns out that, hey, they're actually not all that bad, and even worse, they don't have it good either. That's also something that was very frustrating for Darrow, because he really wanted to hate them, because it's easy to find a person responsible and blame everything on them. But then it turned out that how society treats gods is not great either. To achieve this status of a merciless ruling class, they're forced through a very harsh system where a lot of them die, they can't trust anybody, and sort of the way their education is structured rewards being merciless and heartless and brutal. So it's sort of no wonder that they turn out that way. And even if you reach that highest status, then everyone is constantly betraying each other, fighting for more power. No one really knows why anymore. They're just seeking power for the sake of power. So Darrow realizes that the whole society is rotten. And that's when we see a change in his mission. From just destroying those people he views as monsters, then it changes towards, hey, I have to actually restructure society. It's not it's not that simple anymore. I have to make allies. I have to look for people among the gods who would actually agree, because it turns out that, hey, not everyone is on the same page. There are some reformers who treat lower colors decently. So he starts, gaining influence, sort of creating his own faction or his own legend. And he still is forced to do many things he doesn't want to do, because like the system for now, it is the way it is. It still rewards being merciless and brutal. So Darrow often finds himself being merciless and brutal, and due to that he's carrying a lot of guilt. So I guess the conclusion is that it's very easy to see people as monster. It's no wonder we are so willing to look for one person or one group of people that is responsible for everything terrible that is happening to us. And something important to note is also that nuance is very difficult in everything. We like having simple answers for the problem. I guess that's also why it's so often used to manipulate people, and especially in things like politics. Like, those are the bad guys. You're sort of riding everyone up that they are the enemy. Let's just form together against that enemy, and then everything will be fixed. It's so simple, but like, most of life is not that simple. Most of the world is shades of gray. And just like we see Darrow doing some terrible acts for the sort of greater good, just like we see those people he considered monsters to actually be victims themselves often. So that's something we can remember from that book, that our entire worldview is shaped by our past experiences, and this novel does a really good job at showing us how this perspective can change and how much nuance we can find when we see the fuller picture, and also how difficult it is to deal with this inner conflict of being stuck between different perspectives and looking for the answer, and that oftentimes there doesn't seem to be an obvious right answer. That's not that simple. So yeah, I can definitely recommend reading this book. I'm actually finishing the second part that is in the background on the table, and I hope this can inspire you to read more books. Even if it's not Red Rising, then there are plenty of other good stories to there are plenty of other stories to check out. And if you like this angle of connecting fictional stories with some real life lessons and consequences, then you might want to join my newsletter. I'll be launching it soon. And as a bonus for every issue, I will attach a hand-drawn illustration, because I just want to create this chill place where there is still human-written stories, human-made artwork, and where you can chill from this constant noise of social media, of overstimulating videos. So if you'd be interested in joining the newsletter, then the link is in the description. And see you guys next time.